this country has not just appeared out of nowhere. It's based on many centuries of trial and error, but also based on some core values which have essentially originally based on Christian teachings, and the laws of the land have developed around that for the protection of marriage and family life, and actually the protection of women.
So thank you for your time today. I wanted to talk about two things, if possible. So one was just the marriage thing. I'd written something about there's a lot taking place in Sharia courts, and the minister, what a junior minister had said in Parliament, well, it's no different to Christian and Jewish kind of, and actually it's fundamentally different because they're all part of the civil system. In our country. And so there's that difference there. And my point would be, well, actually, we need to capture what's happening over there as part of the civil system. But that's not necessarily everyone's opinion, because some people think the state should have nothing to do with human relationships.
Yeah.
So get that out of the way. The second thing we might want to touch on, if you're okay to do that, is, of course, the recent GAFCON statement. And also the recent bishop's statements to say, well, actually, we're withdrawing standalone services.
I mean, I do think also it is worth later on, with someone who knows a bit more, to have a deep dive, because I think that there is a connection between the Church of England not defending marriage and the Islamic push for their version of marriage to be on an equivalent basis.
That's really so. What? That's really, really interesting. What kind of connection?
Well, I think that there's no question that the whole Gaza thing, plus the weakness of the Church of England and the obvious de-Christianization of England, is emboldening those Muslims, as I mean, all good Muslims would want to see the Islamification of Britain.
Very much so.
And this is very much part of it. And so the weakness, and I think also that's whatever one thinks about the new Archbishop of Canterbury, we know how that will be perceived. It will be perceived as another sign of the essentially weakness of the church, and the sort of the church being in the pocket of a weak Western culture.
And I think that therein lies the problem, Andrew, because I think a lot of people are realising, from Richard Dawkins all around the place, that, well, actually, to have no religion probably isn't a possibility. So it comes down to which one you're going to support, or which scaffolding, which framework do you think best fits with the culture you want to develop?
Yes, and if Christianity is no more than just let's be nice to each other, we all have different views which are all perfectly valid. We're not really sure about what we can say about God, but everyone has different views. The important thing is that we're all nice to each other. If that's, I mean, obviously that's a caricature of how people see the Church of England, but you don't go to what you see. You go to the original documents, as you do if you want to find out what Islam is really like as well.
Well, that's a very good point. And I think, I mean, one criticism of the Church of England over the years is that it's concentrated on kind of social aspects of doing good stuff, like you're inferring, and not necessarily propounding the doctrines in as firm ways.
No, and sometimes let's be nice to each other can actually end up you end up going against the teachings of Christianity.
This is the toxic empathy argument, where love becomes so overwhelming that actually you let go of discernments.
Yes, and particularly in the area of marriage, that's been the obvious area that's been most under attack, where there are people in senior positions of the church. I mean, I don't know what Sarah Mullally thinks personally, but there are a number of people who I've heard with my own ears have said actually that teaching about one man, one woman for life is hurtful to people who have got different sexualities, or people who are who just, their marriage has come to an end, and we should just accept that. And um, yeah, so I mean, I've heard clergy say that to me, that actually they don't believe in the traditional. It's not just in the sexuality issue. It's they don't believe in the permanence and exclusiveness of marriage.
It's an outdated
outdated, and also lacking in compassion. They will say, well, sometimes it's better that a couple should get divorced and start again, and that's the compassionate thing, is to allow that.
Yeah. So how would you, as a member of the clergy yourself, how would you respond? Because on the face of it, a lot of people would say, well, that's quite reasonable, and it's cruel to expect somebody to stay with somebody they no longer love.
Yes. I mean, these kind of things come up all the time, and I think the Christian faith has always balanced genuine compassion with truth, and Jesus showed us that in the New Testament. The apostles have done that. The church has always had to do that, to balance compassion with truth, and the two shouldn't be in contradiction to each other. If you're choosing compassion over truth, and you're setting truth aside for the sake of compassion, then it's not compassionate. If you have to tell a lie in order to be compassionate, then it's not compassionate. I think that's what we can say, and that if we trust God, if we trust His word, then truth and compassion will always go together. And if we think we're being compassionate by denying the truth, then we've got it wrong, rather than God and His word have got it wrong.
Theologically, first of all, Jesus was quite clear. In all of these cases where He showed compassion, often He would say, "And go away and sin no more." So it wasn't, "Oh, that's just the way you're born. Fine, we're just going to have to deal with that. Go away and sin no more." And then, practically speaking, you've been married for a while. I've been married for over 30 years, and there are times in marriage where the thing that keeps you together is the fact that you've made a public commitment to each other, and getting out of it would be really awkward. And so, it gets you over some pretty tough spots sometimes, but that's a good thing, because you then get to a point where we are today when you think, well, like climbing a high mountain, it's struggle, it's hardship, but when you get there, the views are better than anything you could imagine ever having seen in your life. And you think, thank goodness for the commitment to the struggle that kept me struggling.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I do want to say that, if we're talking about compassion and truth, I do want to say that I'm very aware that there are some marriages, particularly where abuse is involved and so on. And, we have to treat each one of those.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone accepts that. Everyone.
So I think it's important. It's important to say that.
It's important to say it to avoid the obvious criticism, which from people who know you believe that, but will try and undermine what you're saying anyway. But you're absolutely right. No one says anybody should have to stay within an abusive relationship, adulterous or abandonment. Those are a whole separate conversations. Yep. But, I mean, before the law changed recently to allow no-fault divorce, you had all sorts of things accepted in the, my husband's no good at DIY, spends too much time playing computer games. And these were cited as reasons for a breakdown in the relationship. And you think, just sort that out, for goodness sake, But yeah, so your point is well made, that really ignoring these things is a reason why we've got to where we've got to. How would you deal with some people who might say, look, the government should have nothing to do with human relationships and with marriage?
This country has not just appeared out of nowhere. It's based on many centuries of trial and error, but also based on some core values which have essentially originally based on Christian teachings, and the laws of the land have developed around that for the protection of marriage and family life, and actually the protection of women. Yes. It's important to say that.
Very, very important, especially when we come on to the Sharia thing.
And again, that's where we're going to find a difference with the Islamic teaching, it's a different attitude to women and to family life. And I, I mean, Michael Nasralli always used to say this. He was always very reticent, when some people wanted to make common cause, and I think probably for that particular thing of making common cause with Muslims about, against the introduction of inappropriate sexual material in primary schools, when that happened in Birmingham a few years ago, etc. Michael, always cautioned against getting too involved with making common cause on the nature of marriage, because he said, actually, it's a different understanding of marriage. It's a different understanding of the dignity of men and women. For Christians, there is the equality, the fundamental equality before God of men and women, and the protection of women, just from being randomly taken by someone else is, that's sort of goes deeply into what it means, and goes right back to creation. And so that's embedded in the law, and the law has said, actually, we want to protect that actually marriage is absolutely fundamental for a strong society. To protect marriage for raising of stable families and children is absolutely fundamental, and the state should be involved in that. And one of the dangers when you say, well, the state, everyone can have their own arrangements for relationships, it doesn't matter. All the research, as you keep pointing out, Tony, and others, all the research shows, how important it is.
Yeah, it does matter, and also the Christian ideal that actually the man's highest aspiration is to sacrifice in order for the development of this woman. Whether our viewers will believe the biblical account or not, God created man. Everything was good. Then he saw he was alone, and that wasn't good. And then the pinnacle of his creation was woman, a complementary to man. And that man reached his fulfillment when he realized his purpose was to sacrifice in order for the optimum development of this other person. And how marriage teaches you about sacrifice and about working together for a greater good, and all those sorts of things, which the opposite, in terms of what we have in our promiscuous society, etc., is all about self-indulgence and me and my desires, as opposed to giving up me for the sake of you and something greater, which is a wonderful thing for society more generally. Yeah. So you would largely agree on the premise that actually some kind of civil union should be tied into, as it is with Jewish, with Catholic, with other sorts of Christian marriages, tied in with the ceremony, with the officiants, with the places, and actually that in accordance with government reviews and recommendations should also happen for Sharia marriages too, if they're to be recognised. And in fact, anything different really, like you're saying, isn't in the interest of women and children.
No, I mean, I presume that in some mosques, that when marriages take place, that there is a registrar present, as there would be, in a Baptist church.
Indeed, there are. In some, indeed, there absolutely are.
Yeah, in some, as there are in some Baptist or Free Evangelical or other churches. They don't have if you get married in those churches, you are not married in the eyes of the state. You need to have a registrar there, or you need to go to a registry office before or afterwards. Whereas with the Church of England, because it is the Church of England, it's the state church, and it's a long-standing law that the Church of England minister is a marriage officer by virtue of being appointed and licensed to the parish. He is a marriage officer, and he, when he signs the register and the administration is done correctly, that couple are married.
Yeah. Yeah. And where are you on the discussion, which several of our supporters are very keen on, the idea of marriage 2.0, if you like. So the government has diluted what Christians saw as marriage so much. They've redefined it. It doesn't need a man and a woman. In fact, it's no longer about permanence, because you can just file a no-fault divorce at any point you want. So the whole arrangement is something different. And indeed, the government are looking at cohabitation and saying, how can we put laws around cohabitation to give people access to jointly developed assets, which is a whole kind of marriage light thing. Some people are reacting and saying, well, actually, we need a covenant marriage or something else, which actually allows a man and a woman who want to opt out of these things that society has for them and to adopt a different, new, sort of original type of relationship that we understood marriage to be in the past.
Well, I guess at the moment, if as long with the current arrangement as it is, not as ministers are trying to suggest it is with statements in Parliament, but with the current arrangement as it is, that seems to be a good legal framework, and just basically to keep saying that is the framework. But I mean, certainly it would be a great idea for churches to develop, from an Anglican perspective, I would say liturgies, because that's what they are. I mean, some I realize some churches might be allergic to to the word liturgy, but essentially that's what it is. If you're talking about writing a covenant that actually makes it more explicit and about what's going on from a Christian perspective, that would certainly be something that would be very good if that became something that churches could do, and could spread more widely if someone could develop that kind of a form of words, if you like, which is as part of worship and witness and a public covenant, that made it more explicit what biblical marriage is. That would be very good.
There's always been this ongoing discussion, in terms of marriage research and, the advantages of marriage for children and for the adults. It's correlation, not causation. So, more responsible people get married, less responsible people don't, and more responsible people have better outcomes than less responsible people. And but actually, when you look at the striations of the research across different socio-demographic groups, not sure that that's the case. Actually, it seems to be of benefit to all sorts of different groups, and you do as much as you can to compare. Like with same argument, you could say, well, does gravity exist? Well, it's just a correlation between things falling at certain velocities constantly, and actually there's no such thing as. Well, it seems to be the case. At what point do you say it's so overwhelmingly the case that it seems to be a law concerning marriage? Now, if you were to have the kind of marriage we've got now in the States, whereby it's relatively meaningless, because you can walk away from it very, very easily, and then you had another covenant marriage which said, look, this actually locks you in a bit better. It's interesting to see which people would choose.
So you're suggesting a state-sponsored covenant marriage. I mean, I'm not against that. I mean, I think that would be great. I wonder how realistic that is. But at the moment, I think what the thing to do is to defend what's currently there and to teach people about what marriage is, as is said. I mean, especially, for example, if you're getting married in church, I think there is more of a covenant, an explicit covenant thing that goes on in a marriage in church compared with a registry office marriage. Although the end result is the same in terms of the certificate, the piece of paper that people so denigrate, actually a marriage in church, you really have to block your ears not to hear what's being said, the promises that are being made, the spiritual component of it, really, as well as the moral and legal components. It's there in the marriage service, which is a very ancient form of words. And as I say, what's amazing about it, people will point to inequalities and all the rest of it, but it is absolutely equal. The man and the woman stand there. I mean, the visual symbol of it, they stand there together, side by side, and they say the same words together to each other, in front of the witnesses and in front of God.
And that's it, yeah. Public commitments.
That absolutely speaks of the the equality, and well, it speaks of so many things. And as Christopher West has pointed out, it also speaks of our relationship with God ultimately.
Yeah, which is, and of which it is a model, if you like. It's a reflection of that relationship with God, and the relationship with the Godhead, the kind of the order that God seems to place in His creation. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, for everything you're doing. It really is good to talk, and I wish, and I'd love to find ways of working more with you, because I think what you're doing is so useful and so helpful.
Thanks, Tony.
Have a great Friday.
Bye.